again, friends and neighbors. It is Stuart Payne from Read 20 and the Readmobile, and it is story time. Today, we're looking at a book that's a little bit different. It's called Woolbur, and it's about a little lamb who is a little bit different. This story was written by Leslie Helakoski and illustrated by Lee Harper, and it begins this way. Ma says, "Woolbur had a little trouble with the herd today." And Pa asked, "What happened?" And Woolbur says, "Well, I don't want to stand still with the sheep, so I ran with the dogs instead." And Pa says, "But those dogs are half wild." Woolbur says, "I know, isn't it great?" Mom says, "They're just going to run circles around you." Woolbur says, "I know, isn't it great?" And Grandpa says, "Don't worry." But Ma and Pa pulled on their wool all night long, worrying. The next day, Ma says, "Woolbur had a little trouble in the shearing barn today." The shearing barn is where they take the sheep to shear or shave their wool. And Woolbur had some problems in there. Pa asks, "What happened?" Woolbur says, "Well, you see, I don't want to shear my wool because being woolly feels nice." Pa says, "But it's springtime." "I know, and isn't it great?" said Woolbur. Mom says, "Your wool, it's so long." "I know," said Woolbur. "Isn't it great?" And Grandpa said, "Don't worry." But Ma and Pa pulled on their wool all night long. The next day, Mom says, "Woolbur had a little trouble carding wool today." Yeah, carding wool. That's where they use these little pads with spikes on them to separate it out and start separating the fibers so they can make thread and whatnot. "Here's what happened. I carded my own wool today," said Woolbur, "and now no more tangles." Kind of. "You know, sheep don't card wool that's on their bodies," said Pa. "I know," said Woolbur. "Isn't it great?" Ma says, "You look so different." "I know," said Woolbur. "Isn't it great?" And guess what Grandpa said? "Don't worry." But Ma and Pa pulled on their wool all night long. And then today, Ma says, "Woolbur had a little trouble spinning today." And Pa asked, "What happened?" Woolbur says, "Well, I rode around on the spinning wheel and man, was that fun." "But spinning is not supposed to be fun," said Pa. "I know," said Woolbur. "Isn't it great?" Mom says, "Now your yarn, it's all loopy." "I know," said Woolbur. "Isn't it great?" And guess what Grandpa said? "Don't worry." But Ma and Pa pulled on their wool all night long. Today, Ma says, "Woolbur had a little trouble dyeing wool today." "What happened?" asked Pa. "Well, instead of dyeing the yarn, I dyed myself," said Woolbur. "You see, I like experimenting." "You look unbelievable," said Pa. "I know," said Woolbur. "Isn't it great?" "Well, it'll never wash out," said his Ma. "I know," said Woolbur. "Isn't it great?" "Don't worry," said Grandpa. But Ma and Pa pulled on their wool all night long. Today, Mom says, "Woolbur had a little trouble weaving today." "What happened?" asked Pa. "Well, I put my head in the loom," said Woolbur, to weave my forelock." "But that's not what you were shown," said Pa. "I know," said Woolbur. "Isn't it great?" "Well, it's unheard of," said Ma. "I know," said Woolbur. "Isn't it great?" Don't worry, said Grandpa. But guess what? Ma and Pa pulled on their wool all night long. Finally, Ma and Pa took Woolbur aside and they said, you must follow the flock, dear. It's what we sheep do. So from now on, you will stay with the herd like everyone else. You will shear wool like everyone else. You will card wool like everyone else. You will spin wool like everyone else. You will dye wool like everyone else. And you will weave wool just like everyone else. Oh, said Woolbur. And then he thought, and he thought, and he thought all night long. And from then on, he taught everyone to run with the dogs. He taught them to let their wool grow and to card their own wool and to spin crazy yarn and to experiment with color and to weave their forelocks. Ma and Pa put their heads in their hooves and sighed. Woolbur does not think like we do, said his mom. I know, said Pa. Now everybody looks like Woolbur and acts like Woolbur, said his mom. I know, said Pa. How will we ever find him? But Grandpa said, don't worry. Because he seems to be leading the herd now. So, what do you think the big idea of this story is? What's the main idea? What do you remember most about the story now that you've heard it? Feel free to leave some comments in the spaces below, or if you know people that are not on Facebook and you want to share our videos, we have a YouTube channel, Read 20 Chattanooga. So feel free to like and share as much as you want, or if you have requests for stories you'd like to hear read aloud online, send them to us through our comments. And thanks for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.